Hi, I'm Cliff, an experienced leader of change initiatives and an advisor with a real passion for teams that are leading the way. Now, today I get the chance to talk scaling technology businesses, project delivery insights, and real-world value of AI with my special guest, Tom Haworth. Now, Tom is the founder of the AI software enabler, B13 AI, and he's a thought leader in creating market-ready software. It's a real pleasure to spend time with Tom and discussion not to be missed. So with that, it's my pleasure to say hi to Tom. Hello.
Hi. Hi, Cliff. How you doing?
Very well, very well. I think if I'm honest, it's one of those, I've said this a lot actually, it's a conversation I've been looking forward to, but it really is one I've been looking forward to. I've been hounding you and stalking you for such a long time. And we've had some many good conversations in the past, and hopefully this will be no exception. So
Good. Well, sorry it took so long to get to the stage of recording it, but I agree. It's been we've had some great chats, and I'm very much looking forward to this one.
Fantastic. So Tom, you've got a really good backstory. I wouldn't mind starting with just you letting us know a bit about you.
Sure. Well, I'm very much a advocate for being able to kind of progress through careers without needing the kind of privileged background, so social mobility. And I'm from a background where certainly wasn't privileged. My mother was a part-time social worker and was the main source of income in the family. She kind of had a plan when she decided to have children that she was going to grow all of the food at the allotment and buy all of the clothes at jumble sales. And so that's what she did. And so that was my background. That was my upbringing. Certainly no spare cash to spend on technology, but from a very early age, I was there's all sorts of stories of, for me as a young 4-year-old playing Monopoly by myself up in my bedroom, learning kind of doing deals against myself, learning that kind of entrepreneurial business background. And yeah, a lot of the things that I did in the play that I had at that kind of age was very kind of business oriented. And I think that I was very fortunate to have a family and background of kind of a very entrepreneurial or self-employed, let's call it, background. My father worked with my uncle as a self-employed printer, running a small printing business in Cheltenham. And I've got a kind of a half brothers and a half sister, 3 half brothers and a half sister, all of which are they're all self-employed kind of business people as well. So very much a background of business and entrepreneurship. And so I think that really kind of helped with my kind of move to later on in life setting up my own business. I wasn't that good at school. I don't think it was the right environment for me and my the way that my mind works. I didn't get on very well with the teachers. I think I was a distraction in the class more than anything. I did all right. The results, I passed. In fact, the only thing I didn't pass was business studies, which is quite ironic, I think. The only GCSE that I didn't get was business studies, and I often wonder what I would say to Mr. Fluke if I saw him in the streets now. But I got enough to get by and actually kicked on quite a lot at A levels to get the results I needed to get into the University of Birmingham doing astrophysics. Not really because I had a passion for physics. I mean, everyone is interested in the stars, right? So that sounded quite a good thing to do, and I could do it. It was something I was able to do. But that was pretty much the extent for the 3 years. It's a bit demoralizing, really, to scrape by all the way through. I ended up with a 2.2, 50.0%. Now, I think that there's some kind of, I don't think that was just luck, because I needed a 2.2 to get into computer science at the University of Birmingham. I'd identified computer programming as something that I enjoyed whilst doing the degree in physics. In fact, it was by far and away my most successful module that I did. I kind of blew that one out of the park, and all the rest I struggled with. 50.0% was what I needed to get in, and I got it bang on the nose. So I think they might have maybe edged me up in areas to get me through, so that I stayed at the university. But from there, I went on and absolutely kind of smashed computer science. I did a MSc 1 year conversion course. I got a distinction, second in the year. Against some really good people, and went on from there straight into a career as a software developer. I spent 10 years working for other people before setting up B13, my business, and the first kind of half of that, I guess, or 2 or 3, 4 years, was in working at smaller businesses, SMEs, some agencies, and some kind of boutique kind of software development companies. Well, I got a lot of experience in that kind of small entrepreneurial scale up and startup kind of environments. Then moved to some larger businesses that you would have heard of. So TUI Travel, I worked with another guy to merge the databases of First Choice and Thompson Travel, which is now the TUI website. I believe they're still using that same database code that I wrote all those years ago. Then moved to DEFRA, where I did some work on EU farmers' subsidies. They had a real problem where they wanted to spend the EU money before the UK money, but the problem was they couldn't spend the EU money unless they were absolutely certain about the calculations. But the calculations took about 2 weeks to run, and so they weren't able to calculate what needed to be paid out to the farmers in time, so they just had to pay them the UK money. And so what I did is I turned that 2-week calculation into 20 minutes. So I designed, architected it, and ran a team of developers to put that in place. And that meant that the EU money could get spent first, and got testimonials from the clients there saying that we've saved the UK government tens of millions of pounds per year. So that was a great experience. And so from there, I went on to work at an government agency in Cheltenham, working on the London 2012 Olympics. And that was a really good experience. Worked with some really kind of clever people and entrepreneurial people as well, actually. There's a lot of contractors working in the building, and the people that I worked on that project with went on to found their own business, which is a very successful business in Cheltenham, working on data security and sentiment in kind of within large financial institutions. They actually went on and just exited, and they're very successful. But that certainly inspired me at the time to think, okay, what can I do here? What can I bring to the world that's really going to make a difference? And software development was my bag. And like I said, I had experience of working with smaller businesses, and I could really see that access to software development was a real challenge for small businesses. Even back then, before the demand for technology really took off, which it has done in the last few years, particularly since COVID, there's a huge demand for building software within small businesses. Every business is a software business these days. And you need to be, a lot of the time, creating bespoke, unique software to really help stand out from your competitors. But I could see there was a real problem with the amount of availability of skills within the industry to be able to deliver this huge amount of software to drive the change and the advancements that we're seeing now. I don't think the phrase was coined at that point, but the digital skills gap is what it's called now. Not having enough software developers, or other people in the software development skills to be able to deliver the amount and demand for that technology. So my solution at the time was to outsource work to offshore regions around the world where there is an abundance of talent, no shortage of developers. So I started with India and very quickly added on Vietnam as well. The pound was a lot stronger in those days, so actually I was able to take on projects for clients and get a couple of different teams working on it at the same time, and then identify which one was doing well and kind of get rid of the other one and just carry on with that one, and then A/B test several different suppliers over a period of time. And so that's how I managed to kind of identify at the time India and Vietnam as the best places, the best results I was getting from those places. But after a while, realised actually it's Vietnam that has the culture and the skills and the enthusiasm that really made a difference to my clients. And so when I set up my own development centre, I had an ambition to set up my own development centre offshore. And so we've chosen Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam as our base. And we have a business there now with about 80 to 100 software developers at any one time. Not just software developers, but business analysts, testers, project managers, DevOps, all the skills you need to deliver software. And here in the UK, we really focus on working very closely with our clients to understand the problem, understand how we can deploy software to solve that problem, and then defining that in a lot of detail, using our business analysts that we have here in the UK, and really kind of working with our customers to find the best way forward and operating in their space, what they understand. So a lot of the time we're working with non-technical innovators that kind of startups, scale-ups, people that have identified a problem or an opportunity, but don't know how to get started with software to solve that problem or address that opportunity. And so we kind of take them through the whole process, step by step, de-risking as we go, making each step along the journey as easy as possible, and really trying to remove that risk of failure or risk of losing money, which is so prevalent and common in the software development industry, which is unregulated and kind of anyone can do things however they want. But we looked for the best way and delivering the best way forward for our clients.
Brilliant. That's a real varied history, that's for sure. So what would you say then is B13's kind of main target audience? And so you talked about the skills gap. You're definitely closing it. What area are you seeing that you're becoming most useful and most known for?
Yeah, it's those non-technical innovators. So as I said, everybody, every business is a software business now. You can't operate or innovate or, drive forward without technology playing a major part in the business. And, so there's huge amounts of opportunity, huge amounts of, ideas but people don't have those skills to deliver the solutions, the technological solutions. And so how do you address that? I mean, people could partner with a CTO, and, if you're a startup and you're partnering with a CTO, they're expensive, or you need to give them a large chunk of your equity. And then what's the CTO then needs to, be able to put together a team with people, whether that's employing them directly or outsourcing it, in order to deliver. And as a non-technical innovator, how do you know whether your CTO, how do you vet your CTO? How do you know whether they're actually able to do what they say they're able to do? So it's a very difficult place to be as a non-technical innovator. And they're the people that we spend time with every day at work and trying to help educate, handhold, de-risk, bring along on the journey. People don't know what best practice is in software development and why best practice should be employed and what are the reasons that we do it that way. And so we're always trying to help people to understand what we're doing. We're trying to be as transparent as possible, show people, what are the risks in a software project? How are we going to address those risks? And how are we going to monitor that those risks are being addressed as we're going along? We try to be as transparent and as possible, in order to not only deliver on time, on budget, and to meet the expectations and vision of the founders, but to do it in a way that they feel comfortable with at every step of the way, and they're not kind of wondering, I wonder what's happening with this. So I haven't spoken to them for a month. I'm hopefully, they're going to do what they said they were going to do. It's a very difficult space in an unregulated market with lots of people trying to sell and not necessarily looking to follow best practice, and maybe just trying to make a quick buck, and not looking for long-term partners.
Yeah, I think that some of what you said certainly resonates with me. I'm unfortunately not as technical as you, but I have a slight similar experience where I did a non-technical degree, then moved on to a conversion course master's, which was much more technical. I don't think I caught the development skills as well as you have, but I wanted to stay in this space, which is what kept me going for more. Now, with what you said, I was really thinking about the types of maybe entrepreneurs and business leaders that you've encountered. What separates them from, and many of them are non-technical, and then call upon your team and your technical expertise. What separates them from those who maybe succeed in adopting what you've implemented with them versus those who are potentially less successful? Because you could, in my mind, I'm thinking you can develop the most amazing product for them and with them as possible. But if they don't have the right ingredients as non-technical, as general business leaders themselves, they may not be as successful as they want to. And so what would you say would separate those clients of yours or those people that you work with, so that potentially people can think about what they need to bring to the table when working with an organization such as yourself?
Sure. Well, I think that there's a couple of key ingredients. The first one is engaging with the process. I think that if people that engage with the process, embrace it, and kind of throw themselves into it, because there's so many moving parts here, and everybody needs to play their role. And I think that there is a temptation when something is technical, when something's difficult, when it's outside of your skill set, when it's daunting, and to be able to say, okay, right, you do this and I'll wait over here till it's done. And when it's done, you bring it to me, and it better be right. And I think that isn't out of laziness. It's not out of kind of ignorance or anything like that. I think a lot of it is to do with, well, I'm almost scared of that, or that isn't something that I know. And so I'd rather turn my back on it and hope that it's all going to be fine, because I'll just pay someone else to do it. But I think that absolutely 100%, there's projects that are most successful are where people are engaging. And what I mean, okay, so what do I mean? What do we expect from our clients? We would want them to engage in the scoping and the kind of definition of what needs to be done up front. And that can sometimes mean reading through quite a lot of documentation and looking through designs of screens, and spending time kind of really going into the detail and making sure that everything is being covered. Because if it's not there, then how can you expect anyone to know to deliver it? I think that's what we do. We kind of remove ambiguity by putting as much detail in as possible. But that means that what is kind of written down or what's designed on the screens is what's actually going to be delivered. And so there needs to be some time spent in doing that. And then once that is being built and we're kind of pushing stuff out, actually it's a lot easier to identify problems or misunderstandings when you're using the software. And so we always, after every single sprint, so which is two weeks, after every 2 weeks, we will share the latest version of the software with our clients and ask them to test it. Now you'll find that some clients are get on it straight away and they're testing it and they come back with, well, that's great, but actually I'd like it to be a little bit different, and we can kind of try to accommodate that. But there are other clients that you really have to twist their arm to get them to do any testing, and they wait till the very end, and then they're like, well, actually that isn't necessarily what we wanted, or this isn't the best result, or and that's because they weren't there along the journey, and they almost kind of just took a step back and let it happen. And like I said, I think it's to do with how daunting it is when you're a non-technical innovator and you don't have those technical skills, and you've employed someone to take that off your hands. Well, I can assure you the best results is when you stay as involved as you possibly can and try to understand what's going on. And that's what we want to do. We want to help people to understand what's going on and bring them on that journey, rather than just like they drop us off at the start of the walk and then meet us at the end and hope that we're all there in one piece. And that isn't. It's much better if they come on that journey with us to a certain extent. Another key ingredient, and this is something that we really like when our clients come to us and they've done their product market fit and they've done their go to market where they know the problem that they've identified is a real problem, and there are lots of people there with that issue, and that if they deliver some software that's going to solve that problem, then there's going to be a market for it. And that's step number one. And then the go to market fit is where actually are you going to be able to sell it to those people? Are they going to pay money? And a lot of the time people think, oh, I need my piece of working software so that I can sell them a piece of working software. But actually they don't. They can just have some screenshots or some kind of marketing material that they can use and open the door to bigger conversations. And that's how they're going to start, whether they've got the software or not. So if they wait till they've got the software, they still need to put some stuff out with some screenshots and say, do you want to have a chat about this? And so if you do that before you've got the software and you're finding no one's responding to your emails and you're finding it really hard to get into a meeting where you might be able to make a sale, then that's going to be exactly the same once the software has been written, but you're going to be, you're going to spend all that time and money and investment into building some software that you actually find no one wants to buy. So much better if they've done that work up front before they come to us. And a lot of the time people think that they need to have identified the solution to the problem, and they need to have spent quite a lot of time fleshing out the ideas and coming to us with a solution. Well, actually that's not the best the way that we see the best outcomes either. We see the best outcomes where people come to us with the problem and work with us to come up with a solution, because we have over 100 software projects under our belt. We've been around the block a few times, and we know how to deploy technology to solve problems in the art of the possible. And so being able to educate people at the start and be able to help them solutionize is a really important step. And so I would say that you don't need to have everything sorted or understood or all the problems solved before you go and chat with your technology partner.
Yeah, brilliant examples. And I think what you said actually could also resonate with, even if you were an in-house delivery entity of a bigger organization or a third party working with other businesses, such as the way you guys operate, the same applies in many respects, right? Engaging with the process, making sure you don't shy away from things you don't know, but are able to actually engage where you have got the skill sets and you have got the capability to do so, to validate as well, and not wait till the last minute, because I totally agree. Invariably, it does go wrong. Expectations do get mismanaged if people don't engage early up front. And then the other thing that what you said raised to me was that I suspect that your team also, as well as being incredibly technically savvy, need to be also savvy at articulating technical things to non-technical people in a way that brings it to life and brings a real world element to it, so that they can start to engage and so that they can add the value that they know that they can add.
Yeah, both very true. I think that the common thread for our customers is the non-technical innovators. And you're right, that can be any type of business. It can be startups, scale-ups, SMEs, larger businesses. The general trend of the kind of thread is that they don't necessarily have that technical capability in-house, or they don't necessarily have the capacity for their technical. As a larger business with a technical team, they don't necessarily have the capacity to take on a standalone project. We call it kind of entrepreneurs. So larger businesses with entrepreneurs, kind of almost a startup within a larger company, right? So that's the common thread, and we have customers that kind of the broad spread, right the way up from kind of startups all the way up to the very kind of top end of SMEs, almost verging on larger businesses. But that's really where we're focused. We're not targeting large organizations. There's a lot of businesses, software development companies out there that are. I think it's quite a crowded space. We're going for the smaller businesses, and actually that's a lot harder thing to deliver on. There's much more variation. You need to be a lot more flexible, and you need to be a lot more efficient as well, because there's not as much money in it. There's not as much margins in it. So you need to be incredibly efficient and avoid waste and remove the risk of overspend, because your customers at that end don't have the budget to be able to find an extra 10% over what was originally quoted. What you quote needs to be what you deliver at. Otherwise, they're not expecting to have to find more money. And so that I call it the long tail. And it's well, everyone calls it the long tail, but it's the long tail, right? It's been identified as the long tail. And I think that it's quite a good place for us to be operating in, because like I said, that our larger competitors want to work with larger customers. We want to work with smaller customers, and we want to keep growing, and we want to be a big company dealing with small businesses and helping make software development accessible to smaller business, SMEs, startups and scale-ups.
Yeah, brilliant. And there are things as the more you go down the curve in terms of size of companies, the more of them there are, right? So potentially the more opportunities. And I think you're absolutely right. Every penny counts in that space. And so you've got no room to wriggle, nowhere to hide when it comes to cost. Now, speaking of efficiency, that leads me on to something else, which is all about AI and how that helps in terms of managing efficiency and even managing potential or perceived threats around software houses and developers and their craft. Tell me about what you're seeing in terms of the landscape and how AI has been potentially effective and maybe less effective, because it's not all rosy from my perspective.
Sure. So I could talk a little bit about how we're using AI within our business, first of all. And so we are AI enabled, and we are using it to make us more productive, improve efficiency, improve accuracy, and really be able to deliver So we're using it for writing our specifications, for example. So we have business analysts who are expert and have written software specifications for years and years. They know what makes a good specification. They know how to moderate what's coming out of the AI. So they're able to put the prompts in, generate the results, and then moderate those results in order to put together a really comprehensive spec, really high quality, that the client is going to be able to understand from a non-technical perspective, but also the developers are going to be able to understand, and removing the need for the developers to make assumptions, because if the software developer makes assumptions about your software solution, I can absolutely guarantee it's not going to be the same thing that you would have chosen. So yeah, using AI for that is a game changer in terms of making this accessible through efficiency. We have a process called venture mapping that we use for our software scoping. We create comprehensive documentation that we call a build Bible that is accessible to non-technical people, but also can be used by the developers to build a software application, exactly to specification. And we've been doing that for years and years, but with the onset of generative AI, when ChatGPT came around, it's made it much more efficient and much more accessible. So that's one part of our AI enablement, and then we're also using it within the software development kind of sphere. So our software developers are all using AI to help them to generate code. But again, this is exactly the same as with the business analyst, and to be honest, AI in general. To use AI effectively, you need to be an expert already in what you're looking to the AI to help kind of build or write. You need to be able to know what to ask the AI for, and then you need to be able to moderate what comes out of it to make sure that it's right, accurate, efficient. And so, yeah, we're using, so the developers are using AI to write code, and that's speeding software development up significantly. And again, which, the faster it is, the more cost effective it is, which makes it much more accessible to smaller businesses and startups and scale ups. So yeah, the more we can kind of continue on the cutting edge around utilizing AI in software development, better it's going to be for our clients. So we're absolutely at the cutting edge of using AI for software development.
Yeah, that's more than I thought, if I'm honest, Tom, that you guys are using it for. That is really, very good. Do you know what else I was thinking? You may be able to use it for, if not already, is around, you talked earlier on about having 100+ projects under your belt. That's a goldmine of internal data and really, really good insights around how to navigate certain types of projects and initiatives. Having that at your fingertips to call on every time you have a similar type of engagement or project can only be a really good thing, because it's something that's relevant to only you guys, your team, and will be invaluable to your clients.
Yeah,
I know you call on anyway, but yeah.
That's right. Yes, we have a number of projects that we're running internally around building our own AI, kind of bespoke AI capabilities, often augmenting large language models like ChatGPT with additional information from kind of real world experiences and specifications and software code that we've built in other projects, and being able to feed that into the AI to get better results coming out the other end. So yes, that is something that we're working on, and is a big kind of ambition and vision for the future.
So what guidance would you give to somebody maybe earlier on in their project team career, whether they're an engineer, whether they're a scrum master, or somebody who works in a project? What guidance would you give them around advancing and developing their career, given how the landscape is changing these days?
Yeah, and it's changing fast, and it's changing in ways that just 5 years ago wouldn't have even been conceivable. And I think that transferable skills is something that is so important, and that kind of resilience to change, because you need to be adjusting and readjusting career aspirations and career targets and career goals all the time as the landscape moves. I think I was at a Web Summit at the end of last year and went to a talk where they were saying that within the next 5 years there won't be any software developers anymore. It's all going to be built with AI. Now that was quite an extreme. That was JetBrains that did that. So they build software development tools, and they're obviously trying to crack this nut, right? Where they were very biased, right? Because I think that it was I think that that's a step too far. I think that you still will need people with the software development skills to be able to stitch together modules and things like that, bring in kind of larger architecture. You're not going to be able to get AI to build all of that. I don't think about, I'm not sitting and watching what they're doing on a daily basis, but just that prospect is enough to make anyone going into a career as a software developer, they should be sitting up and taking notice of this and thinking, okay, well, if this was to happen, where have I positioned myself and what skills have I built that are going to be resilient to these changes and going to have longevity? And I think so in the UK, in England, or Great Britain, right? Our secret sauce has always been around innovation, being able to come up with the ideas, being able to own those ideas, own the IP. And I think that, we go back to the Industrial Revolution. We started it out of Birmingham, and then we ran with it and we built the factories and we did all the manufacturing until it got to a point where actually it was more efficient to get it done elsewhere. And so we then moved it over to Asia, and but we retained the intellectual property, we retained the design, we retained all the thinking and innovation, and just got it built somewhere else. And I think that has also happened with software, right? So we were a big part of with us with the USA, a big part of the PC and computer revolution, a big part of the internet revolution. I mean, Tim Berners-Lee's from Britain. He kind of invented the internet, right? So we were big players here. But again, I think that we've kind of been through this phase of, okay, well, we were building it all, and now I think that we're at a phase where actually it can be built more efficiently in other ways, whether that's outsourcing and offshoring to Asia or using AI to build it. But the important thing, the thing that makes us most unique and our biggest role of what we can bring to the party is around the innovation and the ideas and the IP. And so if people can position themselves around that in their technology careers and being able to really kind of drive that forward, capture those ideas, build out the prototypes, being able to move quickly, innovate. I think that is the areas that are going to persist and remain after this big change, huge change that we're seeing with AI.
Your job title isn't really going to mean much in future, because it's about the outcomes that it will be more about the outcomes that you can take part in making happen. And that therefore is the value that you can bring. And so tying yourself down to a specific engineering language or stack, or even having titles of a scrum master or a program manager or whatever it may be, those things I think will become less important. And it's about what bags of skills have you got to add value in an innovative way. They become your currency, your personal currency. And I think the advice that you gave around staying current, get engaged with new technology, embrace it, and don't sort of stand still. I think they're going to be more and more important as time goes on.
I mean, if you talk to non-technical people about technology and software and jobs in software, they just think coders.
Yep.
Software developers, but that's what they think. And so they're like, okay, well, if we're going to be a player in technology, then we need loads more coders. And that we were all saying this 5 years ago, right? The big drive to get kids coding at school. All the kids need to do coding at school. And that was a big drive. Well, now they're saying that there are going to be no software developers in 5 years' time. So what happens to all those kids that spent, from the ages of 5 to 10 learning how to code? Oh, we don't need coders anymore. And I think that we're a bit late to the game, if I'm honest, as a nation, with this digital skills gap that we've got. That has been brewing for decades. We're not getting the right kind of subjects at school. And I've seen the converse of that in Vietnam. They have invested heavily back in the in the early 2000s in technology and software as a career. They have 7 universities in Ho Chi Minh City that do software development. They have more universities than that, but 7 that really focus and specialize in software development. They have around 10,000 computer science graduates per year coming out of those 7 universities. And they've had that for the last 15, 20 years. Now, if you look at Birmingham to compare it to, we have 3 universities with about 600 computer science graduates a year. So it's 2 orders of magnitude difference there. And so no matter how many kids you get coding at this stage, we've already lost that race. We lost that race a long time ago. And so that isn't the area we need. That isn't how we can compete in a technological world. It's not by addressing coding. It's about how do we come up with the ideas? How do we capture those ideas? How do we communicate those ideas to get them built? And then how do we deploy those ideas? That's where we can really make our mark in the world of technology. And that's how we've made our mark throughout history as a nation. So I think that's if people are going to be kind of thinking about careers in technology, they need to be framing it around that as an ambition rather than I want to be a coder. There's nothing wrong with being a coder, by the way. I was a software developer for 10 years, and it's a great career. It's just I would be a little bit concerned going into it now at its longevity.
Yeah, I think so much of it is or can and maybe will be commoditized to a degree purely because the UK, is not as cost effective as the likes of Vietnam or other nations purely for that fact. Clearly we have the brains. I also think back to what you said about innovation. It is a luxury that we have in the UK because we're able or enabled and empowered to think outside the box, to think differently, having an unconstrained way of thinking about problem solving. I totally agree that if we do more of that and continue to do that without those constraints, we'll win.
And to be honest, let's be honest, that way of thinking, that kind of removing constraints, out of the box thinking, those aren't the core skills that are really useful in software development, right? And I think that you kind of can't have it both ways. We have a culture and environment that's really good for that, but not so good for bringing kids through STEM subjects and into computer science. Whereas Vietnam have very much focused, and other countries in the region as well, have focused very much on, okay, well, let's just breed a culture of kids that are coming through that have those natural abilities around software development. That was absolutely a strategy that Vietnam adopted 15, 20 years ago, and to great effect. I mean, it's amazing what they're doing there with software development, and we've lost that race, but we've got a lot of other things to offer that there aren't many countries in the world that can.
Great. Now, I'm going to give you an option, Tom. The option is either ask me a very difficult question about projects or initiatives that I may have stumbled across and put me on the spot and make me squirm, or give one final remark around something that you would want people to take away from this session. Choice is yours.
Okay, well, I'll ask you a difficult question then. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So I've got a great question, and I'm very keen to know the answer to this. And I'm going to go out of my way to find the answer, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. So it's around software project failure, and the reasons behind that. And I want to know real world stories about software project failure. So there are statistics that you can find very easily on the internet. One, for example, is 52% of software projects go 180% over budget. And you can also find out that the main reasons for this would be around scoping and defining the requirements before even a line of code is written. That's the number one place that software projects go wrong before they've even started. So I guess my question is about, can you give me some examples of failed software projects. Obviously, you don't need to give like the names of the stakeholders, anonymize that part, but some stories about failed software projects that you've seen and the reasons.
Typically, I'll give you an example around the why, what I think the root causes were, and potentially what we could do again. So what I find is that the root cause isn't necessarily just about the requirements. The root cause is more around failed projects is about over-engineering requirements, actually, and less about understanding them, but over-engineering the length of time it takes to understand the requirements, and not just getting started. So getting started with enough to move to the next phase of understanding, as well as disengagement, which is something you've talked about in the past, and almost ivory tower syndrome, where I say, I give you a pot of money, I say what I want, and you bring it back to me in a nice little bow. That doesn't happen in the real world, and that's classed as a failure. And then the other thing, actually, which is blindingly obvious, I think, is not identifying what success actually means in the first place. Is what is a successful project versus what is a successful product, and when will we know that we've achieved success? And I think I've found where I have been involved in identifying those things early on, it's been blindingly obvious whether we're heading towards success or failure. Then we can course correct early enough before it becomes a problem. Cool. And you know what? I will give you an opportunity if you want it to give a passing statement around one thing to people who might want to take away from this.
I'm here to help make software accessible to non-technical founders and to help them find the best way forward in software development, and educate people through that process. And I think that we need to be really careful. All these non-technical innovators need to be careful. They don't jump in too quickly. They don't jump in without really making sure that they have de-risked their project, that they understand what's going to be delivered. Because yes, it's technical. Yes, it's difficult to understand, but that doesn't mean that you can't understand it and that you won't understand it. If you're working with the right people, then you should absolutely be able to go into every step along the journey with confidence and knowing that you've done the work to de-risk the investment and that you can see the path to the next step and that you can get there. You can see how you're going to get there successfully. And if you're working with anybody where those things aren't, when that isn't the case, where you're kind of going in not really understanding what's about to happen, or you're not comfortable with what you're going to get out at the other end of this stage of the journey, I would warn people to be very careful. Despite the fact that software development is a very technical thing and difficult to understand, actually anybody can understand it if they're taken through it in the right way. And so just be careful not to jump in and go too fast or too far and invest too much money when you don't understand actually what it is that you're putting your money into.
Fantastic. What a great way to end that. And on that note, our time's up. All I have to say is thanks, Tom. It's been a real pleasure. Definitely well worth the wait. And look forward to catching up with you again soon. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Cliff. Love to speak to you.